Hello and welcome to episode 8 of the Ammo Hour. I hope you're all doing pretty well. A bit of a somber start to this week's episode. Obviously there's been the horrific news this week of Sarah Everard's murder. And it's raised loads of questions within our whole society. A lot of conversations been happening about how, it's just gone on too long that women don't feel safe. Women are certainly being oppressed, basically. They're subject to so much more than probably guys are aware of. Growing up, I had a conversation with my wife in the wake of all this happening, and just told me about things that had happened with her just growing up, which then speaking with other friends who are female, just seem to be givens. Like that happens when you're a woman, and it's really made me feel really uneasy. And I'll tell you why. Because I've been somebody that has felt the reaction of, well, not all men, and I thought I was kind of justified with that. And I'm not saying I posted that up. I'm not that insensitive or stupid. And also, anything I say here, I'm no expert on anything. I'm obviously trying to learn to be better. But even when me and my wife are talking about things, and she's saying it's very normal when you were younger, people in nightclubs back in the day and that would grope you, and my reaction is, yeah, but that happens to guys too. Women when they're drunk touching arse and that. Yeah, but it's not the same, is it? Because I'm not fearing that woman is maybe going to follow me home. And if that woman does attack me, I'm not afraid that I'm going to get raped. And after that, I'm not fearful for my life. So it obviously is not the same in the slightest. And it really led me to think, why is my stock reaction to try and protect men? When I hear the phrase like smash the patriarchy and men need to sort this out, and I don't think for a second this was a realistic suggestion. I think they were trying to create a discussion point by creating a bit of a headline, which I think is sometimes the way to do it, about a curfew on men. Why is it that my reaction was, no, how can you do that? It's not all men, it's not all men. Why am I trying to protect something that is obviously harming women? Especially, my personal background is I've been brought up and raised by, and a massive majority of my family are women. It's a matriarchal family. There's a couple of male cousins, but mostly it's mums, aunties, daughters, grannies. It's female. I love women, and I don't say that in a smarmy way, like a ladies' man or that. I love women in terms of I respect women. I'm so comfortable in the company of women. I'm just very, very comfortable being myself around women as like the token lad and getting the mick taken at me and me taking the mick back, etc. So why is it that when it's thrown to me, and I quite clearly know I'm not an abuser, I'm not somebody who's going to oppress women, so why is it I'm getting my back up to protect men? And to be honest, I don't really know. Is it this ingrained thing? Is this, when they talk about the patriarchy, is it this ingrained thing? Because let's be honest, I started this podcast and have had a lot of conversations, and the one that we hear today, with a purpose of helping fellow men. Now, that doesn't mean that I think they need help more than women, but it's a fact that male suicide is disproportionately large. So why is that? And, I don't want to speak for women, so I thought it's not that I'm only going to have men on this podcast. And I've reached out to women before, but certainly in light of what's happened just now, I have some conversations on the go to try and speak with women who are going to be much better placed than me to have opinions on this. And I want to listen and learn and let them have a platform. So yeah, going back to that, I think the reaction is I'm sticking up because I'm thinking, well, guys don't have it easy either, and we don't. This isn't, about, woe is me, because obviously it's not a like for like, but guys don't have it easy either. Of course they don't. My episode with Dave Patterson was a brilliant summary of why he thinks that is, and a lot of things I think as well. We still feel, it's maybe not that people are putting this on us, but that we're breadwinners, yet for quite rightly there are more equal opportunities now, and that's only going to get better and more equal. So it's not just handed on a plate now, and there is less jobs because of credit crunches and recessions and pandemics, and the wages are less for doing more. So there's all this stress to be what we're meant to be by society, but that role has changed at the ground level, but we still feel that, all the pressures, but also in a less kind of socio-economic way. This patriarchy is basically, it runs deep into, I had a super supportive family and stuff, but I still felt like, you don't really say what's on your mind. I can remember going through a really, really tough time, like not as a wee boy. As a wee boy, you always speak to your mum and stuff, but I remember going through a really tough time and finally speaking to my mum about it, and it just felt unbelievable. I walked away feeling like, fuck, why didn't I do that earlier? But you know what? I've never really done that again, no matter what I've been going through. She would listen to anything I had to say. Any of my family would. I'm telling people to open up all the time. I could say a similar thing about my wife. I've been with her 11 years now. There's been some times when things have been really, really tough, and I've maybe opened up 2 or 3 times. Other than that, I'll just let myself get heavy for months and months and months till I can get it off my plate. That's not healthy. And what is it institutionally, archaically, what is making us feel that we have to take all this burden on? Well, that is the structures that are in place. This is just how it is. Stoicism to the negative degree. Like stoicism should be, look, if you can't control it and that, just move on, that's fine. But it's not, we're not doing that. It's this stiff upper lip. It's this, grind and get on with it. It's this man up. And it's bullshit. It is bullshit, because if any of my friends killed themselves because they felt that was a better way out than being vulnerable for fucking hell, man, like one evening, and then they knew that I was with them and we would just work it out, I'd be there, and then I would share my vulnerability with them, and it would be absolutely easy. That same shit is killing us, that is allowing men to get fucking depressed, aggressive, think that they can lash out on women, think that they're owed something because they're having such a shit time of it. Again, there's no purpose to what I'm saying here. I'm not an expert. I'm the first to hold my hands up. But how can it be so ingrained that in this day and age there's still kidnaps, murders, rapes and abuse of women going on? And yes, there's abuse going on with men. But that is, domestic abuse from females to men. Of course that's a thing. But it is a minority. Whereas the mass majority of these attacks happen to women are men. My friend, I don't even know if you'll listen to this, my friend Nick Fisher put up a simple thing on Facebook the other day, and he was thinking about it, and he said, yeah, it isn't all men. He's like, but when I'm walking through town late at night, when am I intimidated? When would I take my headphones out and maybe ready my keys in my hand or get ready for, a fight or something like that? It's when I see a group of men. And we are men. Would I worry if I saw a group of women? No, not in the slightest. I don't know where it goes from here, but I just wanted to be upfront and honest, and say that, I had been thinking that way as well. Obviously, I was on the side of women. I'm not trying to say for the slightest, I'm not holding my hands up and saying I was posting not all men or any bullshit like that. I'm not that fucking ignorant. But my initial feeling was that, and here's a wee point as well, which again might be controversial, but I'm here to be honest. And it's not a fucking woe is me again, because people are oppressed and it's not us. there is oppression there, like I said, but I think it's from our own fucking side, and we're doing it to ourselves through the reasons I just talked about with mental health and expectations and things like that. But I think right now, the defensive stance that I'm feeling sometimes is because, the issues, with the Black Lives Matter and things, and you're told, right, you're white, so you're privileged, and your initial reaction is, like, I grew up, like, poor, like, it's not been easy for me. I've seen people at school who had tutors or, better structures than me in place, and I wasn't privileged. And then you're a man, so, you're the abusers, you're the attackers and that, and then you're maybe a straight male, so it's, you have a narrow mind, you're not open. So, straight white male, it's like, you are the issue, you're the problem, you're taking heat. And your initial reaction is to get your back up and go, that's not right. I'm not a bad guy. I'm not a fucking rapist. I'm not a racist. I'm not a bigot. I don't fucking dislike people who are different sexual orientation to me. But it's the wrong attitude to have. Nobody is saying it's fucking you. But what they are saying is, in your circle, proportionally, statistically, there's going to be people who are like you who are the problem. And it's up to us to somehow at the ground level root that out when people show these tendencies, these views, say these things. It's up to us, because the people who they hate or have issue with or feel they're better than, A, they're not going to listen to them because they share those bigoted views, and B, it shouldn't be for those people to have to fight who are aggressive, narrow-minded people. It should be us to turn around to our peers and say, that's not on. And you best believe anything I've learned in my life has come from somebody I respected. I maybe thought it was funny, and someone's turned around and going, that's fucking out of order. And it hurts when you look back when you're younger and you've done something like that, because you've maybe just been acting like peer pressure or following what was acceptable. When someone really tells you straight, it sits with you. You might not change, but you probably will. If you respect that person and you didn't really hold that belief, you were just going with the crowd. And times are changing. And the people that can make changes, again, I am not for a second going to say I know how we sort this out, across the board. But when they say that men need to take charge, this is what I'm certainly going to take from it. And I want to learn more, and I want to have more conversations with people who do know more, and I want to listen, because I know I talk a lot. Obviously, I'm running a podcast here, but I'm not trying to be obnoxious here. This is my platform, and if two people are listening, I just want to be honest and say how I'm feeling. So what I'm going to do, like with the race issues, like with, homophobia, transphobia, misogyny or derogatory or oppressive views towards women, I'm going to call it out. And if somebody wants to take issue with that, that's cool. I'm not going to try and ruin their life for it. I'm not going to try and fucking shame them, but I'm definitely going to say what I feel on the matter. And I think only at that point will we really start to affect at least a little change. But it's all about ripples, isn't it? It's all about butterfly effect. And yeah, it's certainly not to think that, that means I'm doing anything righteous. That is the fucking minimum we should be doing, man. This is like, we all have a mum, sisters, aunties, partners, and they're scared, and they're being attacked, and it's not happening to us. So why is it that we're coming up with arguments for it rather than going, I'm going to fucking help you? So yeah, I don't know. I can't get out of my mind what's happened to this poor woman. And my heart goes out to her and anybody who's had to suffer anything, not even to that degree, of course. But it's nothing I'll ever have to worry about. So, same as racism. It's absolute bullshit that it's still a thing. So yeah, I'm not trying to be on a soapbox here. And if you wanted to skip through that ramble, all good. Moving on from that, one of my best friends in the world, Mr. Phil Robbins, is today's guest. And this was filmed way before what we've just talked about there, about 3 weeks ago. And we were talking a lot about kind of male mental health and how I didn't believe, there was toxic masculinity, it was like toxic people. I maybe have changed my view a little bit on that now. But certainly one thing I do hit home about is he's what I see masculine is, and it is vulnerable. It is not trying to be an alpha. It's listening and supporting people and stuff like that. And because of that, he's one of the, and I don't say this in a high school way, but he's one of the most liked, well thought of and popular people I know without ever trying to be, just because he is there for people. He's a dependable guy. He's a trustworthy guy. And he stands up for what's right. And yeah, as soon as I met him, I just was like, this is my guy. And yeah, we're absolute tight as thick as thieves these days. So yeah, I think you'll all love this conversation, just to basically get a bit of exposure to Phil Robbins. And yeah, I'll get to share one of my friendships with you guys. So that's awesome. If you're listening and you want to watch, please head to Instagram at the Ammo Hour, and you can look at the link tree there and get the YouTube channel. If you are watching, please subscribe on YouTube. Please like on Instagram. If you're listening on a podcast, please like, subscribe, give us a rating. It all helps to just bump this up a wee bit and increase the listeners. Feedback is always welcomed. You can just comment or message on Instagram, or you can email me at theammohour@gmail.com. And as always, you get 20% off the merch just for listening. So that's the link is on Instagram, but it's theammocollective.bigcartel.com. And at checkout, just put in the Ammo Hour. There's tees and hoodies and everything there. Thanks so much for listening. I know that was a really long one today for the intro, but just something that was on my mind. Okay, so please take care of each other. And this is episode 8 with Phil Robbins. Soundo, here we are with my buddy, Phil Robbins. How are you, mate?
Yeah, good. Really good. Been looking forward to this for a little while, and catching up on your chats with various other friends and associates of you has been, it's a really nice listen over the last few weeks, you know.
Nice, man. Well, just for everybody watching, this is probably the first and only bit, and then we'll get real natural. But I always like to just explain who I'm chatting to, because obviously you're very close to me, but some people might not have met you before. But you're one of my closest friends for sure. And I think I was drawn to that friendship because I would see yourself this. I was thinking about like how if I was introducing you to someone that had never met you, what I'd say. You hear the word so much these days, like toxic masculinity, and me and you have a lot of conversations. I don't think masculinity is toxic in the slightest, but there's toxic people, there's toxic behaviors, and right now, rightly and a lot of reasons, and sometimes unfairly, I think it's focused on masculinity. But for you, I honestly, and it's not to blow smoke, but you are the things that I think is the most positive aspects of masculinity and like being a leader. So you're open to vulnerability, you're not arrogant, you're humble, you lead by example, you listen a lot. We were speaking the other day about how, you've maybe redefined, and we can go in depth to it later, about, the goals maybe not being number one or the alpha in a pack or in a job or anything. The real strength can come from like support and round for that. And yeah, I think ever since we met each other and worked together, yeah, you're not a headline grabbing guy, but through that, I think to our friends and everyone knows you, and you'll blush here, but that's the way you do grab headlines. You know what I mean? So, yeah, genuinely, I think conversations that I have with you, we always get really deep, really quick. And I think we've stumbled on this going, what the fuck will we talk about in the podcast? Because we talk about everything face to face. But I think the one thing I said to you when I wanted to start a podcast was conversations that me and you are having. I know from cutting people's hairs, there's guys out there that need these conversations in their life and aren't getting them. So I think we'll be able to chat with you and have you on a few times and stuff, and we'll be able to just get deep without feeling that we're too fucking masculine to do that,
Totally, man. That's very, very kind of you to say. I think, obviously when we were kind of talking about this, and it's a weird shift in the last maybe year or so, like I've been more open to maybe talking a bit more about things publicly, whereas usually before, opinions, feelings, whatever, would be confined to my kind of close friends, family, and inner circle, you know. But I think that when you spoke about what you wanted to achieve with this off the back of what you're already achieving with the football team without even having kicked a ball, essentially, you've spoken a lot about that, like reaching out to people in almost indirectly, you know, like giving people a safe space to have thoughts and feelings and opinions without judgment. And I think you've created that atmosphere in lots of different WhatsApp groups that we're in together or related to the football team, like even coming along to those first couple of training sessions, you know, great bunch of lads straight off the bat, like because by association it was boys that knew you or that you'd come into contact with in the past, and then through this as well, like listening to the guys that you've had on. I don't know. It's like it seems like all of that stuff around what a man is slowly not changing even, but just becoming a bit more of an open dialogue. You know, which is a great spot to be in because we talk kind of generationally a lot. You know, you and I, what traits you get from your parents, what traits your parents got from your grandparents, and like a lot of amazing things have been passed down, and a lot of things that maybe we disagree with, that now we're at a point in history where I think a lot of the time, I've had this conversation with Caitlin a lot recently, a lot of the time we're at a point in history where we should just know a bit better, you know, like with a lot of suffering, a lot of pain, a lot of judgment. Like we're at a time where we've got the knowledge, we've got the technology, the resources, etc., to just be a bit more, what's the right word for it? A bit more accepting of our kind of weaknesses and wrongdoings or mistakes in the past, and responsible for how we're going to make good of them going forward. You know. I don't know if you
100%. 100%, man. I say this a lot with politics, and don't want to get into politics here or that. And that is obviously people's, own choices. But when you're just repeating stuff that's like not factual, it's like whether it's political, whether it's racial, gender, all this stuff. There's no excuse for ignorance these days. Opinions, if you've got opinions that are different to mine, and you've got reasons for those, but when you're repeating false narrative, when you've got the internet there, I mean, I do so much like research, but none of it's even intelligent stuff. It's just fact checking or asking simple questions, so I know I'm not talking absolute nonsense. So no one needs to be like clever. They just can't be ignorant. There's no excuse for it anymore.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, and I think that's I think the two themes, I guess, that I've tried to apply most to myself in kind of personal growth and development are responsibility and consistency, so responsibility from a young age of like trying to just get better in small ways, which, hand on heart, I don't think I was like a person that I was totally comfortable with till I was maybe 28-ish. I don't know. But like from a young age, kind of like being very drawn to people who could teach me things, and also like, I think, being involved in sport from a young age or like at school, whatever, like I kind of just wanted to, like, I don't know, I was quite surprised when folk liked me. I was talking to my mum about this the other day. Like, I just felt like it was a really nice thing because I was just this wee shy boy who I was like, oh, like, that guy wants to speak to me, or like, that wee girl's told me that her mate fancies me or whatever. Like, it was such a, you're like, holy shit, that is well nice. And I think so, like, those things that like I had as a kid, like being shy by default, sort of you listen more than you speak, and then coming through to like probably adopting that a bit more as I got older. Like, fuck, this actually helps people open up. Like, there's been rooms that I've been in where I honestly couldn't have said more than 20 words, and someone from that event or whatever has got in touch, being like, it's really nice talking to you, etc. And I'm like, fuck, like, I think you talked about yourself for 2 hours we were chatting, but that's lovely,
Yeah, man.
And yeah, it's a funny thing. Like, you get quite reflective at this age, I think, and I think you and I are both the same as being. Yeah, I'd go as far as to say over. Like, I'm definitely an overthinker and have
Same, mate,
worked
yeah.
very hard on, that it's come up with a couple of the guys you talked about, is like the whole idea of letting yourself be down but not being hard on yourself for it or whatever, and it's a weird battle that you always, like, whether you've played a game of football and you're like, right, that was amazing, or you've done a really good session at the gym, or that was really good, and I guess there's part of it that makes you better, makes you want to strive harder, but also I think when you get into the realms of, like, round about your 30s, you're like, I've definitely stopped looking around the room and comparing myself to other people, and just thought all I want out of any experience is to better myself out of it. Like, I'm only competing against me in whether it's getting a wee bit stronger or, like, being a better dad now. Like, a week on week, I'm like, what did I do well last week? What could I have done a bit better? Like, and equally, like, Caitlin and I talk about it all the time. Like, everything's the first time. We've not had a new baby. We've not had an 8-week-old baby. Like, all these things is, like, brand new. And then you actually apply that to life a wee bit, and you're like, every day is, like, just, as absolutely cliched as it sounds, it's fucking school day. Like, we're here to just and try and hopefully positively affect those around you. But the biggest way in which you're able to do that is being the best version of yourself.
Do you think, definitely, man, definitely. And do you think that I sometimes, like, have these thoughts? So I guess without getting too deep and without being like, oh man, don't be silly. Like, I know a lot of this is irrational. That I'm just like talking about the thought chain. So sometimes I try and think about, it's a really dark subject, but it needs to be talked about. Like, why are so many, like, I say lucky, and I don't mean lucky in the disrespectful way that obviously that's some people's best friends who are killing themselves, young males usually, and young women as well, of course, but disproportionately it needs to be said. And obviously I don't mean that it's lucky it's not my friends, because that's fucking horrific, but I just mean I'm thankful it's not my friends so far, and I hope that's never the case. But even when, so I'm trying to think, why is that happening? Even though I know, like, everything in my life, you're just saying there, I'm just taking this back from you saying, you get surprised when, like, people like you and stuff like that, even though, like, I've got a beautiful wife, like, best friends, like, great best friends like yourself, Eggy, Rob, the boys in the band, Callum, Andy, like, I could list off everyone that was at that stag.
Yeah.
Great family, like, a football team of guys that, I couldn't comment on terms of personal relationship, but we have mutual respect, loads of clients that, sure, I'm not the best hairdresser around, but they love to come to me for, I know all these things in my life, and but still sometimes I'll sit there and go, and they must be, like, having me on, or like, nah, there's no way that they genuinely, yeah, but you know what I mean? So if I, like, that's just something built into me, or I'll just, have a feeling that, like, they're being too kind, or just I've fucked up, whatever. I don't understand it. So do you think there's something built into a lot of people? Like, do you think these people who have everything from the outside, but then can't they seem to get out of the darkness? There's just something there that's telling them they're not good enough. And if so, how the fuck can they overcome that?
Yeah, I think it's almost like a evolutionary thing gone haywire in, like, current, like, I think breaking it down to, like, I don't know, chemicals and biology, and this is like opinion rather than fact based, but like you think about reactions you have to certain things like anxiety and feeling scared or feeling excited. Like really interestingly, like, Caitlin was the first person to say to me she found anxiety and excitement like almost too close to call. So like whether it's positive or negative, it like had this almost the same effect on her. I think in the regard to what you're talking about, like what like I guess it's imposter syndrome is how you'd kind of,
That's it.
In psychology or whatever it's talked about. And honestly, in the last week, man, like after we saw each other for that epic round of golf the other day, I met my mate Gregor in the park, and you know, Gregor set up a business. He's like made a lot of sacrifice. He has had incredible write-ups in national publications, etc. He's stuck to his guns in it. He's like, Phil, man, I'm in meetings and or I've been asked along to these things, and I like fully shell up because I don't feel I belong, and equally Caitlin talks about it with her road to recovery in terms of sobriety. Now she'll be 6 years sober in July, and she talks about not feeling like she has a place in terms of being in those rooms when there's someone there that has struggled with it longer than she has or had a harder path. I'm like, it's crazy. Like that to me like blows my mind, because I mean it's one of the biggest attractions to her is the strength that she's shown in every aspect of her life. And I think applying all of that to like what you're saying in terms of like male mental health, I guess at the moment, like I don't know how you combat that feeling, if I'm totally honest, when you're kind of like, what are the big things that people work towards, generally speaking? Like take this last year and a bit out of the equation, because I think that it would throw any sort of measurable thing off the charts, but most people work towards some level of recognition within their industry or their peer group or whatever, a certain amount of wealth in order to sustain the lifestyle that they want to live. And then there's I think you touched on it with, I think it was with Big Dave, but like that sort of like the traditional male role and like what you bring to the table. And I think that those things are all, I was reading somewhere the other day, when our parents, maybe you actually said this, but when our parents were buying houses, the average house price was 3 times as much as the standard income, and at this point in time, it's eight times as much as the average income. So all of those things start to throw off. Like I think there's an underlying fear that hits all of us with like where we're at. I also think that like a lot of us focus on the wrong things, like I think that what's been I was definitely like, I thought I loved work from my early teens. I thought work, you're told that's like you go to school, you get a job, and then you like settle down, have a family, get a house, whatever, like there's that path. And I was very much caught up in the work side of things for like that 10 years, from when I was 18 to when I was 28. Wanted to prove myself, wanted to be like in positions of I guess power within the businesses that I felt like I brought so much to the table, etc., but at the detriment to relationships, family relationships, friendships, etc., and just like terrible habits in terms of like sleeping, eating, boozing too much, taking drugs, like all of it. Like I look back and it like makes me shiver, being like, oh, like I can't imagine the thought of like getting up for work in the states that I was in, and I get like again, bringing it back to what you've said, like it's kind of like a wee state of confusion at the moment of like, oh, I should be really grateful for all the stuff that I've got, but I feel a little bit unfulfilled in X, Y, or Z. And then I think as we've kind of like evolved, it's meant that like that feeling of like dissatisfaction. I was listening to something not so long ago that was saying like the whole like you've just been paid, $1 million for your first breakthrough film, which was your goal. Jim Carrey talks a lot about that. The kind of note he left himself on the fridge and just the sheer emptiness that he felt afterward.
Mm-hmm.
And I think like we're so hard on ourselves in terms of like goal-based living. Like there's this like mad like grind or hustle culture, like we've spoken about it at the moment, and a lot of the time it's like sort of busy idiots like, oh yeah, you'll speak to, and I used to be terrible for it, someone asked me like what I've been up to, and I felt it was like my duty to like not leave a minute until what have you been up to. Oh well, I was doing this on Monday and this on Tuesday, and I've actually got these 10 things going on, and I've got all this shit coming up. And it was weird. It was because I was trying to prove it to myself. So I felt like I had to prove it to the person asking the questions. And I think that like settling back into it and going, and this year's been a like a blessing on a personal level in terms of like time to really take stock of where we're at. But looking around, man, like having an incredible support network of friends, wonderfully generous and helpful and loving family on both our sides, having like the most like, I don't know, 50-50 partnership with Caitlin, like that we can flex between. If one of us is having a shitty day, she'll step in and take responsibility to get me out of that, or if she's feeling that way, I'll try and do the same for her. Having a beautiful baby, like it's taken all the focus away from anything that really could be taken away from me,
Mm-hmm.
like that job or that wealth or that big house or big car or whatever. Like, and fortunately enough, I've never really been someone that's cared about money, probably like in a irresponsible way in the last while, like taking jobs for free because I thought the experience would do me good, or not talked about money going into a job because I was like, fuck it, pay me whatever, I just want to do this job, I want to do it well. But I think that's a really, really long-winded way of saying, one, couldn't tell you for certain from personal experience. I think the darkest places have come from like an identity crisis or a feeling that I've not lived up to what I should have, given that I couldn't have come from a more loving home, which I think is like, take everything out of the equation, man. I think the luckiest people in the world are those who have been brought into the world by two people that love each other and love the kid, And disclaimer in that my mum and dad had a very unhappy relationship, split up very soon after. But in all of that, my mum was like, "Son, you cannot ever say like your dad might have been a shit husband, but he was an excellent dad,"
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's going back to it, I think it's hard, man. Like I think seeing people struggle with all sorts of stuff at the moment, and from all ages, having everything that people identify themselves with, whether it is like buying nice things and going out at the weekend and feeling like, confident because they've just been at the gym and like had a nice haircut, and then they go to the pub and they're, like all of those things, people have had to really look in themselves at the moment. And ultimately in the current state of the world, like a lot of lives are quite empty. Like, we've like built it up with like loads of stuff, and that stuff's like been taken away, and then you're like, oh shit, like I should have nurtured that friendship a bit more, tried harder in that relationship, or not giving myself such a hard time in that capacity, because now anytime those subjects come up, I'm a total shambles, like it's
100%, man. Like those those feelings like get me sometimes too. And like I don't realize I've been in it till like way after, and there's not like an exclusive time it could be happening, but like I'll be bogged down with like work, but like the work at the moment is work I'm putting on myself. So that could be admin stuff or planning stuff for the football. It could be like sorting out. I don't want to say on this because it's still a bit of a secret, but sorting out band stuff, like all the admin side that comes to that, launching a fucking new clothing line thing, like trying to sort out a business, like why the hell, like, and then I would go and play my guitar and demo a tune and go, this has been a great day. And Nick will be like, oh, did you eat today? I'll be like, nah, I've just spent 8 days, like 8 hours, sorry, it's tea time now, just drinking coffee and writing music. And I feel like I'm cheating. I feel like, oh, what a skive that was today. I'm like, why this only time in your life when you're allowed to, and that's not even a skive because I fucking write songs, but that's something I love. But I've got something deep entrenched in me that's like, I must be fucking productive and not 100% enjoy it. And the reason I say that, that's obviously one part of the issue. The second part of that could be like Nick trying to, I'm not always like this. I'm not trying to paint this like I'm some sort of monster, and I'm sure everyone can fucking agree with, relate to this. But I'll be like doing this busy idiot stuff, and like Nick's maybe try to have a joke of that, and I'm like, yeah, yeah. Or a mate wants to meet and do something, I'm like, I just can't. I've got so much on my plate, blah blah. And then a wee realization will come and go like, all this stuff I'm doing on this screen and this box and these plans that come to fruition, and then they're not even huge things anyway. I just felt I needed to tick that off and say I'd done that. And the happiest times in my life are when I'm in, like, I love touring, I love playing, I love recording, but if I'm honest, the happiest times in my life are when I'm walking through a new city or in the van listening to music on the road with my band, my mates, or I'm away with my mates doing something, or I'm on holiday or camping or something with Nick. And what's the common denominator here? In my mind, when these things feel amazing, or with family in a back garden, it's not where I am at that. It's that I'm just like living with the people I love in the moment, not thinking about a laptop or a TV or a goal. It's just being. Being is the absolute best feeling. So why is it sometimes I like push all that away? I'm not trying to make this about me or a counselling session. I believe by speaking about myself, like, people will echo these things and be like, fuck, I sometimes feel like that. So I wonder what, again, I'm not asking you to dissect that, but I wonder what that is. If that's like the factory worker, the slave mentality. Slave's a terrible word to fucking try and equate that to. Of course it's not, but rat race type. Do you know what I mean? Like, are we so keyed in now, like formed into productivity, that we are finding it very hard to escape that? And the reason I come around all that is, when you'd spoken about Ava, your new baby, beautiful wee baby, I wonder, because like another of my best friends in the world, Eggy, I'm Greg, he had to leave the band just as we were kind of on the up, and there was parts and times where my band, it maybe could have been a career kind of thing. There was little points, never like massively in favour of that, but it wasn't like out of the question.
Yeah.
And he had to just walk away, absolutely, no ifs or buts, because wee Alice came along. But he wasn't bothered in the slightest, because this amazing thing was in his life. And I wonder if really that is the meaning of life, like hard programmed into us. It's like, you can have all these things going on, but the fulfillment comes when it's like you're a child with the person you love, and it's like, yeah, now I've got a reason. I'm not getting up, scratching my arse today going, I feel bad if I don't go and do my hit session, or if I don't write 10,000 words on this new policy for the football club. It's like, look, if I get that shit done, that's cool, but I'm here with my baby, making her or him better and growing up,
So I think it applies to not only like having a baby, but like it's when, I guess that's the best example of like you coming first being taken away. And it's like a very, very liberating feeling, And I think that, like, because last year when we found out Caitlin was pregnant, like, you know, even with stuff to do with the football team, etc., like, I was like, I do not want to miss a second of being available to her. Like, she's the one making all the sacrifice. She's the one, you know, giving up her body for the next X amount of months, you know, like having the struggles with like appetite or feeling super low because of hormones, or really teary one day or the next. And that allowed us to, one, become like, you know, a force together, and two, it was definitely the first time in my life ever that I had like started to think of myself as like completely secondary to someone that I cared about. You know, I've done it in like bits in the past with like friends or with family or whatever, but totally honestly pretty selfish dude up until, you know, and like felt as though I needed to be selfish in order to get to the place that I wanted to be. Like, I think there's like a lot of negative connotations with the word selfish, and I think you and I have touched on that before.
Yeah,
Because
I didn't want to butt in there, but a very quick interjection is I'll let you explain that point. But you know, to any of your friends and that, no one would think you are selfish. But yeah, I can reflect and think myself sometimes in the house. I'll be like, I'd rather spend my time doing this rather than I know this will make Nick happy if we spend time. Well, unfortunately, I've got this deadline with a band and I want to write this song so you can go walk yourself. Sounds fucking brutal, absolutely brutal. But sometimes you'll prioritize things, but
yeah,
there's a reason for it, you know, and you hope the bigger picture in the end makes you a happier person,
exactly.
etc.
Yeah, I think, yeah, absolutely nail on the head there. And I think like that's the same thing with since Ava's come along, and you know, like it's crazy where you are sitting there, and Caitlin and I laugh about it quite a lot because it's like, again, that inbuilt thing where like I'll get up with her in the morning because Caitlin's been up with her all night. You know, that's the sort of routine that we've settled into. Caitlin says she prefers that, knowing that she can have a bit of time to switch off in the morning, and I'll get up with her. I prefer the early morning, but in that early morning, it was really hard initially to be like, oh shit, like the house is a bit of a mess, or I should take the bins out, or what? Like I'm just sitting with a little human who's like asleep. It wouldn't matter. But then, like, it takes you back to that being present point that you raised before, man. It's like absolutely not. Like that shit can all wait. What can't wait is this like perfect moment of quiet with my daughter
Mm-hmm.
that I'll never, like, you know, have it every morning now, but it's never the same.
Mm-hmm.
And she, like, you know, you've seen the pictures from like when she was born to now, 8 weeks old, and she's like a different thing altogether, you know. So I think that what you said to about Eggy about it not being a choice, like like I'm in exactly that same like frame of mind. Like things immediately became secondary, but I think it also applies when it's like that late 20s time. I did a lot of reflection because I didn't really like a lot of the habits that I had, and again, like the selfishness was both good and bad, but I used it as an excuse a lot to like push people away or to not commit. Like I had a lot of like commitment issues around whether it's work or like even hobbies and that. I was like, oh yeah, like non-committal. I still carry a lot of that over to today, in that I like freedom in a lot of senses, so I kind of keep a few things at arm's length. But within that period of kind of wanting to be a bit better in relationships, etc., it was mainly because like my mum had stopped asking me to like come to shit because she knew that I would just be like, oh, no, I'm working, or I'm tired from working, or I can't because I've got something else on, or like making myself more available to friends. But I think that what you said about like the kind of task related stuff, like whether it's around the band, I think all of that stuff's like vitally important to who we are as people. And I think that like the the struggle between like, I don't know, like that wee thing in your head where you're like, oh, I should do this, but I want to do that. Like there's something in that I think that we all need to kind of follow a wee bit, and like since Ava's been born, like Caitlin's been amazing, and like I didn't miss a beat in terms of like going to training or exercising or that. Like it was a lot more difficult because I wasn't eating as much or like sleeping as much or whatever, but it allowed me to like maintain a routine that also allowed me to be better as a partner and as a dad at home, whereas a lot of people would have gone, the way that we get through this is that we are together every second of every day until it gets a bit easier, But I think the idea of things not being as important as you think they are, like, yes, to an extent, but also like you do a lot of your stuff. And again, I'm not saying that you're reaching out for anything here, or like this is just an open discussion. I like see the mindset that you have is to bring lots of people into like, I think you alluded to it last week or with Dave, in that like you're a vocal leader, like in terms of you kind of represent the quieter people in a group. You'll be like, right, cool, I'm going to do this thing, and like I'm quite different from that, in that I'll probably just go about it, and some people might get involved, some people might not. But for you, I think the task-based stuff is about other people. It is about Nick, and it is about your bandmates, and it is about your football guys, and that. It's not an act of like, oh, I'm going to go and fucking do all this shit for me. It's not self-indulgent. It's like, it's very generous and selfless, but also in a way, the way that you're set up, like you're a very creative person, you're a very driven and ambitious person in terms of like self-betterment. So if you weren't doing all that shit, man, like you wouldn't be the dude that Nick fell in love with, or your bandmates were like, fucking yes, like Kyle's the boy, or you've got an army of boys trying out for your football team or whatever. Like it's those things that make.
I really appreciate that, man. I'm not going to like sit and say no, but I am aware of where that comes from, and I appreciate how you said you go about it differently, because I don't think there's loads of wee aspects to this. I don't think like a leader is necessarily like, in our society, it's like, oh, if you say, yeah, I'm a leader, people go, fucking Hinks, he's arrogant. Leader doesn't necessarily, he might not be a good leader, but it's something you decide to be. Like, you could be a natural leader, of course, and maybe not think you are, but you can also say, I'm going to be a leader, and whether people want to follow or that's cool. Difference between, obviously, the boss is a crack in the whip, the leader is leading by example. I am a very anxious and shy person as well, and I know everybody who knows me will go, absolute bullshit. That's why I used to get like proper blackout drunk, like on my own, like fucking pushing to extreme, try and get in fights and that in my 20s and that, because like I wasn't happy. I was probably like had depression and that. I definitely had alcoholism. I was like extreme. I look back at videos of us when we were doing like, the old, like, I'm talking teenagers, so I forgive myself for a lot of it. I mean, there was nothing to be forgiven, like, people make mistakes and that, but I was just so fucking high wire, mental, like there's definitely dyslexia there, ADHD, like all this fucking mad shit. And I'm like, fucking calm down. But I know that comes from just being like the wee boy in the house that didn't have brothers or sisters living with him, would say to my mum, would be looking out the window. This isn't a fucking sob story either. It's like a backtrack of why I am where I am. Looking out the window, like looking at the lads play football and that, and my mum saying, go and play. I'd be like, no, I don't want to, because I was like scared or worried, or I'd obviously been like told to fuck off by bigger boys before, and it hurt me, and like shit like that. So now in all the things I do, I'm always thinking, I've always had that thing where I get really upset if people are upset. And again, that's not me trying to like do a virtue. I believe everybody's, if for football manager fans or fans of role playing games, whatever, I believe everyone's got maybe 100 character points, and we've all got
Mm,
good pluses and some negatives. So I wouldn't say my good things are better than others or my worst things are worse. We're all a mix. But one thing I've always been, it's been important to me is if someone doesn't have that voice, or if someone is struggling, or someone's not in the group, even if I think, fuck, well, it's going to lessen experience for me because this is a lot of work, and even if I'm not naturally drawn to that person, that I will not see that person be put out because I literally couldn't enjoy. That's why,
mm.
like, literally, I've got this weird thing, like, so, oh, just eat your food. Mine will be coming soon. I can't touch that food till you're eating as well. That's not me
Yeah,
being, that's not even me being polite or like, no, I will be righteous. I can't enjoy something if someone's without. So these things that I do that for, like, it is selfish as well. But there we go. Selfish isn't always a negative thing, you know?
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and
There's
that takes me to the point as well of like saying leaders there. I remember you were talking about me and you both did this, and then you were like, "It's funny this when we were on shift." He's like, "None of us want to eat till everyone's eaten," and I went, "Yeah, that's just me." And you were like, "Oh, I was reading this thing called Leaders Eat Last," and again,
mm,
people listening to this who might not be my biggest fan of that might go, "What an arrogant bastard keeps calling himself a leader." Well, that's my character. I know myself. I know my weaknesses, and I know that is a strength. So deal with it. You know what I mean? But that's a subconscious thing, and you did it as well. And I think that's then an alpha wouldn't do that. But nah, fucking, I'll take my steak. I'll fucking eat that. Right, use it up. That's a boss if you want. But to me,
yeah.
that's never a leader I would respect. I'm not the fittest in the football team, but when we're doing those pre-seasons, you best believe I'm going to be one of the person that's done the most sessions, the most runs in that. The time might not be the best, the quality won't be as good as some of the natural ones, but I cannot expect anybody to do these things if I'm not doing them.
100%.
And I see
Yeah.
a lot, I see so much of that in yourself as well. You're a person that, you say selfishness. I think it just reflects on what we've talked about there. But I know, and Eggy as well, he's a leader in my eyes. And I've got other great, great friends, best friends who aren't natural leaders, and it doesn't make them any less close. Or like we've all got different strengths, as I said, but like yourself and Eggy, and like you're people that I know, and I wouldn't just ask frivolously, but I know that I could ask anything of, and if it's in your power, it doesn't matter how much it puts you out, you'll do that. And I would like to think people know that of me, and
Oh, without a doubt.
and obviously we've done well to cultivate that because people can take advantage of that. And I've never really been taken advantage of. So you obviously have a guard enough to go, you've got to be in my circle to get that respect. I'm not going to crazily go out my way unless you really need help just to do a favor. But from your best friends, like it wouldn't be a second thought. You need something that's done.
Definitely. I think there's that kind of there's that crossover from some friends that like are your mentors, like I think that I kind of reflected on that those people that are close to me outside of like family and like significant relationship, and like all the kind of like friends that have stayed close throughout this time or have become close are people that I learn from every time I'm with, and I think that's like that it's such a I don't know, like it opens so many doors to not think that you know everything about everything.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's that sort of like I don't know how to put it properly because like there's like Ross that has the gym or whatever, like he is my go-to for like business advice or like how to be more sort of direct in a situation, whether that's like language used or like method or whatever, because Ross is fucking ice cold. He's like boom, he knows how to deal with situations. He's extremely ambitious and business minded, which I like. I think my biggest sort of like I accepted at a very young age. Like I'll probably be terrible at running an actual business because I don't have that like sort of cutthroat edge to me, like, and I'm not money driven, and like this is the funny thing about these things that are coming up with the shops that are opening. Like Andy was kind of like, Phil, I've worked with you long enough to know that you're not going to bother if the till's 30 quid down or whatever, like, and I don't, because it's like bigger picture and it is long term rather than short term. And I think, like, with all the stuff that you said, like, these people that, like, most people take on a leadership role in some aspect of their life, like, whether it's consciously or unconsciously, and then there's those people that, like, that folk are kind of naturally drawn to, and I think that one thing that I've been very grateful for over the course of life is that, like, my mum, like, drilled into us that you're no better than anyone else and no one else is better than you. And it's like, it was such a liberating thing to be told that from a young age. And then also, like, you get that kind of, kind of knowing you're a wee bit different, growing up being like a wee brown kid at, like, predominantly white place or whatever, or like having mixed race parents as well, and you kind of, like, you understand it. And I think that maybe ties into that psychology of, like, feeling like buzzing when someone was like, do you want to kick that football together or whatever, is because, like, having that knowledge of your, mom's my sort of, like, guru, most respected person, and she had this outlook of, like, she'd had multiple, like, obstacles to overcome in her life, but she was like, you have to always show respect for people, you have to always respect yourself, and then over and above that there's loyalty and there's trust. And if one of those three things is missing in any, like, relationship, whether that's, like, your wee pal that you play football, if he's, like, your best mate until the rest of the lads show up, and then he's starting to, like, oh, look at this guy or whatever, she's like, just get rid. And I was very fortunate in that she was kind of, I mean, it was one of those, like, her sort of, she'd trained to be a teacher very late in life, and had two head teachers above her that just could not handle the fact that, like, every year kids and parents were, like, glowing reports about my mum, like, off it, like, all these gifts were coming in, like, ex-pupils coming back to see her and that, and, like, yeah, it's that thing between,
because they felt that she had just walked into it at a late stage and they'd given her career to it.
Nah, because she was so, like, good at what she did. I think so she was, like,
jealousy, basically, yeah.
Jealousy. But then I think that's that thing between, like, my mum was like, my only objective here is these kids, not the office politics within the school, but she did, like, there was a personal battle there in her thinking, I'm doing, like, all that I can be doing, and rather than being utilised by these people that are senior to me, they're jealous of her leadership ability, and then these are people that are kind of in a leadership position that are like, fuck, like, this person's showing me up, rather than being like, holy shit, look at this, asset. And I think that's where, like, again, going back to what you alluded to earlier, I think a lot of the time that kind of quality of someone that's just there for the cause is seen as a threat rather than, like, the biggest possible asset that you could have. Like, I've never wanted to walk into a business and, like, undermine anything that's going on above me. I'm like, I want to come in, I want to start at the ground level or below in order to prove to the people around me that I'm worthy of being here. And I'm talking, like, man, I've worked in hospitality and minimum wage jobs like, most of my adult life, or related to that in all of my adult life. But there's still a pride in me that I'm like, I want everyone who's involved in this to know that I'll work as hard or harder than everyone here, and I'll be consistent in that. And it's not just showing up, it's like coming and showing pride in what you do, you know. And I think
100%.
that's like there was a few months at Redmond's, you know, and this like I honestly thought that it was like magical for a point, you know, and it was like a really weird thing where I was like, I've never worked with a team that like everyone else had. I think like 80% of the staff had like a job that they would class as their first priority. You know, like Steph was doing her degree, you were doing your barbering, Emma was doing pat test and all sorts of other things. Like everyone had like another thing, and I was like, what an interesting dynamic. But because we like the core of that team had each other's back before their own, wanted to make a success of the place or whatever, it like turned into this like little magical place. And I'm not sure if it's the same for you, but like still to this day, folk come up and say, "Oh, Redmond's wasn't the same after you guys left," or you know, like I've not been there for a couple of years now because, and it's different. Like that's not to say it's worse or better or whatever, but there was just that pocket of like a group of people that were all like, you know how highly we both think of Emma, you know, like any team of anything that I was ever doing, she'd be like probably like top 3 person that you call to be like, right. And within that period of time, like I said there, like I would have left before I did if I hadn't had, you know, like it was like that sort of Man United analogy where Sir Alex Ferguson had, you know, he had Roy Keane, he had Gary Neville, he had all these different types of leaders throughout his team that all encompassed everything, so that no one player didn't have a go-to person to make them better. Or
yeah, you've got to like, you can't be you know, so you were, you know, number 1 in that position, and Emma, for example, is number 2. But not just because you were friends. It wouldn't have helped anyone if you had been like the teachers at your mum's work, like jealous that maybe she was better at the stuff that the number 1 would actually do. Because as the number 1, you were bringing her in, allowing her to thrive. And there was things that you did that she would, I mean, she's great at everything, but, you know, I guess the long way short of that is saying, and we spoke about this at the start of the conversation, and we spoke about it yesterday, leader, like beta, is almost says as like fucking, you know, this slander, like, oh, he's a beta. Remember that goes all the way down. Like B, you're talking, so number 2 is absolutely terrible. You think that like walking in there brash and demand, like you as the number 1 were actually letting other people stand up on pedestals and shine in that, and you were just kind of managing that and stuff like that. To me, that is leadership. And I agree with you at Redmond's, you know, for people listening in, this was a bar, and in no derogatory term, I would say just a bar, because it wasn't the role that made it genuinely the happiest place I've ever worked. The best job I've ever had. That summer, my dad had just died, so it would have been very easy for that to be the fucking worst summer of my life. And for many reasons, of course, it was. But coming in there, no stress at all, knowing that I was going to be working with people that weren't going to leave me in the lurch. I wasn't going to be turning around going, fuck's sake, they've left that out of their arse, I'm going to need to tidy that. Oh, fuck's sake. No, knowing everyone's doing, it was just this ethos of we all try as hard as we can, and then if there's time to flake about and have a laugh, we will. But as soon as we need to, if we all try as hard as we can, the shift's going to be pretty simple. If one person lets it go, it's going to be a fucking shit night. We didn't need to have talks about that. We all just understood that. And I think that's such an analogy for life. Like, me and Nick have always tried to be that in the house. 11 years together, like, it's, you know, nothing's ever 100% rosy all the time. But, like, you know, we are so, so happy together. We have been since the start, and that's just because we always say you try so hard for each other. So I might come home and I'm like, fuck, I've had a long day. But, like, you know, if there's stuff needing swept up, the dishes are sitting there, the fucking bed's not made, I'm not going to leave that till she gets in. I'm going to go, right, I'm in first, so I'll get that shit done. So when she comes in, we can both chill out. and I expect that when I come home. You know, obviously it's not always happening, but that's the mentality you need, or you're letting the side down. And I would be embarrassed to be the one that always lets the side down, you know?
100%. I think that's a valid thing. I think coming into like, it would be really amazing to hear all these stories of couples who within lockdown who have, the dynamic of their relationships changed so drastically, and Caitlin and I were at like a very early stage of our relationship, and we were going to move in the April. We moved that forward a little bit when he said, like, you either don't see each other or you live together. And honestly, it's like this. Yeah, I think that balance in a partnership at home is like, I don't know if it's a rare thing because it's always been worked on, but like the amount of fun that we've had in this time where it should, it's the least money that either of us has ever made.
Mm-hmm.
We've had a baby, we haven't seen, like, Caitlin's not seen her family for months now, but like, because there's that mutual respect and also like what you said, like just that desire to kind of pick up the slack or maybe like have initiative to go what that other. And it's like, you're absolutely right, man, in every aspect of your life. It's like it's shooting that wee text to your mate who you know is feeling it a wee bit. It's like giving your mum, like my mum is like, when I give her a call, it's as if, she's won the lottery. And to 5 minutes out of my day to her, it's this like, because she's had 2 grandkids this year. Ben was born 12 days before the initial lockdown was announced, so she saw him once before that time. And then Ava was born the week that they announced this like latest lockdown, so like it was 2 pretty big stabs to the heart that she's sort of had to suffer this year. But because there's that mutual respect in all of those relationships, like at least I'll give her the time of day, even though she's moving house and like got a toddler. And I think like when you bring it back to in the house as well, it's so important that like someone isn't always picking up the slack, like I think that's sort of like, and if you take it like, I know I've been very like, I wouldn't have wanted to live with me in the past. Let's put it that way.
Totally,
like,
man.
You wait till the bin's overflowing before you take it down. We're bad for letting the recycling cupboard fill up, but it's kind of funny now, but like all those wee things, but being able to do it in a way where she can ask anything that I can ask of her, both know that we wouldn't ask that unless, we wouldn't take the piss with it.
Yeah.
I think home life, friendships, family, and work, like it needs to be like that. Otherwise, like, I've shed friends, not in a brutal way, but just let them fizzle out. Friendships, I'm like, fuck, when was I texted me? Called me and not the other way around. Do you know what? Like, I'm a pretty patient guy, and if they called out of the blue, I'd be well up for a chat. But also, I'm not going to chase this thing that isn't like a 2-way street,
100%, man. Yeah, that's happened with me as well. And yeah, I think if you're always the one, it's the word is needy, isn't it? And listen, there's periods in time when we all are needy because, sometimes we'll go a walk and I'll like come home and go, fuck's sake, man, I just complained to Phil for half an hour. But that's because like we have a mutual respect, and it's like I obviously want to like get things off my chest, and I don't feel that that's my overriding character. It's just a vent sesh sometimes. But we know people who it could be at work or stuff like that, and it's just always a one-sided thing, always a complaint, always a need. And I feel for those people because there's obviously an unhappiness somewhere, but you can feel it. It's like a mood hoover. It's like it's fucking drains the passion, joy, and you're like, right, come on, man, like, things might be shit, but what you're telling me isn't that shit. It's just wee annoyances, and you've really got to get over that. You've got to go, yeah, I've fucking been wanting to get back on my training, and I've pung a nerve on my neck. That's fucking shit. But I'm not going to walk around the house all day going, oh, I've pung this thing on my neck. I'm just going to go, this is shite. I hope it goes away soon. Right, let's get on and do this Skype call with Phil, because that's going to be class. Right, and after this, it's going to be sore as fuck, but let's demo some guitar tunes, because I can't go out and run today. Like, I'm not fucking at all got things nailed, but like, what you can control, you have to control. Do you know what I mean? Or you're fucking just going to be in a moody life all the time.
I think, yeah, you're going to live in the mood Hoover.
Yeah.
You'll be a Hoover bag.
You're going to be a sack man.
I think, yeah, like there's always, and there's this sort of disclaimer that prefixes this, in that I like have no like illusions over how lucky I am in my life. You know, let's put that straight. But in the position that I am in, like there's kind of fortunate enough that there's always two ways to look at a situation, you know? And like it's one of those things that, like, I remember right at the start of us when Caitlin and I started going out, and she'd come in and she'd like told a sort of 2-minute story about her day, and like loads of the wee things could have been made into negative, you know, but she was like laughing about this, and she was like, and then this happened and this happened, and like we had a laugh about it. And I think that's like that goes to show that's a reflection of her character, and like seeing the positive in things. And like I would hope that, like, sometimes I think that I come across as like maybe having a bit of a lack of empathy when someone's like telling me something, and I'm like, honestly, like, you're making out as if this shit's fucking like it's the end of the world. But really, if you had a slightly different like mentality here, it wouldn't have even affected you. You would have bounced off that thing. And like I guess the best sort of like I was in the queue for the bank once, right, at the wee TSB at the bottom of Armadale Street. I saw this woman like come in, like pull up on the curb, double yellow lines, like big Range Rover, came in, saw the queue, was like pretty long, was always checking to see if like her Range Rover was getting ticketed or whatever. And the queue started moving a little bit, and then this wee old lady, like, you know what wee old ladies are like in the bank, she was doing something that I don't know, like what, like, you know, it involved 3 pouches and like 2 wee booklets and whatever, like, you know, held the whole situation up. But this woman just exploded, and she was like, oh, like, you know, got raging, and like you reverse all of that, and you're like, here, you've put yourself in a situation where if you'd found the parking place and gone, like, been patient, maybe parked a little bit further away from the bank, you wouldn't be here, you wouldn't be under time pressure, and you wouldn't have just snapped at an old woman. Like, that is all on you. And I think a lot of people do that in everyday life. Like, they put themselves in a situation where the easiest outcome becomes to blame someone else rather than be like, fuck, let's take that back 4 steps, and if I'd done that or not done that, I wouldn't be in this position. Like, you know, whether it's something as small as give yourself more time on the way to work, so that you're not like, for fuck's sake, the train was 3 minutes late and now I'm having to run up the street. It's like, well, you've got that train every day for a year, you know that it's sometimes late. Like, just get the earlier one.
You know? Me and you both enjoy the ramblings and workings and intelligence of Duncan Trussell.
Yeah.
And I remember that was a really pivotal lesson that I heard in one of his a good few years ago. And, you know, I could be guilty of that, you know, getting frustrated with things and physically huffing sometimes, going, like, not so people hear, not quite as much as that, but you're registering with your body that you're annoyed and you need the universe to know it, because in your mind's not enough. And I remember him saying, like, but you have to be, you know, you have to be working on that, but no one's saying that you're going to be a Buddhist monk. Like, these guys are enlightened. They spend their whole life getting enlightened. Like, you're not just going to get that enlightened overnight, or maybe you'll never get that enlightened. But if there's any positive change in how you act to things, celebrate it. And his example was being in the queue and a wee old woman's wanting to pay with a coupon, and then a coupon doesn't work, and she's like, oh, sorry, and then she's like paying with pennies and that, and he's like, and he built up a wee bit longer than that. First of all, she dropped the things, and he's like, oh, for fuck's sake, that. And then he's like, oh, well, I guess I'm not a fucking Buddhist and that. And then he goes, oh no, wait, this is all in my head. He's still smiling, he's not half in his head. He's going, oh, come on, lady, because we don't need to throw away the fact that sometimes we are in a rush and sometimes we are stressed, and it's okay. But he was like, nah, man, I'm keeping this all in. I'm not letting her know there's any pressure here. I'm not letting other people know. He's like, so I'd like to be at a point where I'm not even doing that inside. I'm just going, look, well, this is what's happening. We're just going to be late. He's like, but that's the next stage. And I guess that works for so much. So, we're talking about boozing and stuff, and I'm talking about being blackout drunk and being a fucking asshole when I was younger and stuff. And now when I'm having a beer, I'm waking up in the morning going, oh man, it's so much harder to shift weight. Why did I just drink 5 bottles of beer last night? I'm so fucking asshole. And then you go, oh, hold on. Look what you used to do.
100%.
So yeah, right now I'm going through. It's probably been over a month now with no booze. I'm not saying I'm not drinking ever, but me and you spoke about, and I want to do another episode on this because we're coming up to an hour. I want to still enjoy booze. It's been around for fucking hundreds of years for a reason. It really brings everyone, like, takes the edge off in terms of social, etc. But I want to do that when I'm with my friends, not just sitting in. So that's the next stage. So just like what I'm saying there, and I hope I'm not rambling too much and not making sense of that, but it's like, you're never going to be perfect, but just make sure you're trying your kind of best at that point, huff inside your head if you've got a huff, like, you know what I mean?
I think, like, yeah, I was listening to something the other day that was just like, the sooner that we realise that perfect doesn't exist, that, like, the shackles are off. You know, all you can do. And, like, say you are the guy that's, like, kicked off in the queue one day. Like, again, I don't know what your day's been like in the lead up to that. You know, like, I'm not, like, again, using the bank thing. Like, maybe I took that all at surface level, and that woman was having a fucking shitter of a day and needed to get money to someone who's in need really quickly. Like, I don't know, I've made a judgment there, but that thing of going, like, you see it a lot in the street with, like, strangers. Like, you as people, we make those, like, snap judgments, and fuck, man, like, I don't know what's going on in someone else's life, and if someone's acting again, like, whether that's through like behaving in a certain way or, like, saying something they shouldn't or whatever, like, there's almost always two sides to that story, and, like, that sort of expression of, like, hurt people, like, people who are hurting are the ones that lash out more than people that aren't hurting. So there needs to be that level of understanding, both of, like, yourself in that moment, and fuck, that person might just be crying out for help here, like, so I don't know, that maybe contradicts what I was saying before, but, like, I guess
it's all the same thing, man. It's all the same thing, because you're absolutely right in that observation, but you're also right in the fact that, and it's good, this just shows as well, that happened so long ago, but because of this conversation we're having right now, you've gone, I can do better, though, to maybe not snap judgment there. But your observation was absolutely correct. There's no need for that reaction when it's not the old woman's fault. It's not everyone in the bank who was there before her fault that she can be pissed off. Like, you've come into that place. It's not your bank that should be free. So, man, we're just always learning, aren't we? And I think it's important to... I think that's another reason for this podcast and chats like this. It's not necessarily me doing it, but the more stuff there is in the universe just going out like this, the more chance people can stumble on it, because I probably wouldn't have that point of view if I hadn't listened to that Duncan Trussell podcast, like, 6 years ago. You know, so it seems like such a small thing, but that one little seed can just like plant your head, and then you can have so many different thought processes and ways to approach life from things like that. So yeah, I mean, you need to have conversations like this.
Without a doubt. Yeah, I think that's the kind of, although I read a lot of stuff and watch a lot of things, I don't think anything sticks in my head quite as much as something that's been learned through conversation. You know,
Mhm.
whether that is listening to a podcast and someone else's conversation, or like more often than not, like, you know, chatting to someone that I have mad respect for, and them like producing a little nugget of wisdom totally offhand, not necessarily something that is even a focal point of a conversation, but it's like boom, it's in there. You know, I could read the same page 40 times and not pick out the key point that I'm supposed to learn from that. But within, I don't know if it's like, you know, what we're programmed to do, but like, I just find conversation the best learning tool out there, you know?
100%, man. I've been guilty in the past of maybe falling out with people, or not always one-sided. I'm never going to put that on me, but like basically things get lost in like typing things out, and I've gone through that because I've got a long fuse, but when it goes, it goes. That's like my dad as well. So people think I'm not going to get pissed off, and then so sometimes when I sense there's like this could happen. It's not I'm scared of the confrontation. I'd rather avoid it. So you type it all out, you write it all out, but then tone gets lost, everything gets lost. So whether it's positive or negative, reading a good lesson or trying to discuss things that are a bit touchy, you're really playing Russian roulette, whether it sinks in or whether the message comes across right. Whereas I can count on one hand the amount of times I've really had a proper argument with someone when we've been discussing something, because before it gets there, you can go, "Oh, listen, this is what I mean." You might say, "Well, I don't agree." "Well, I don't agree with you. Let's just leave it there." But over writing, man, things just get picked up so wrong, and then people respond to you, and you pick up that wrong. So like the fucking backs are up before you've even started. And I definitely am trying to do that a wee bit better. But I'm the same as you in terms of, one day when I'm running my business and stuff, it's not my nature to be like, "Look, man, you're fucking up," like, or whatever, or "I don't like this." Like, I'd be more inclined to just go like let's just part ways. I'm not great at like having that big confrontation head on, but that's only because I don't back myself if they come back sharp at me to like keep my cool, and I don't like losing my cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that the whole, like, the art of conversations, like, so nuanced and like becoming more and more lost. Like, you know, even in this like current situation, like, I remember the first, like, when the first lockdown broke and we were back at work for a little bit, man, we had a meeting at work, and honestly, like, all of us had forgotten how to speak, how to listen. Like, it was a shambles, you know. It was like people like inadvertently talking over each other, and like, I found it really difficult to concentrate on what people were saying, like, purely because for that amount of, however many months that first one was, like, I spoken to like maybe like five folk regularly, you
Hmm.
know, and four of those people was over the phone.
Yeah.
So like, you lost that. And I think that the, like, what you said about things getting lost in translation through like text and that is absolutely true. And I think it's a really good point, like, because it can be taken in that negative way where someone's thought you've meant something that you didn't mean, but also when you sit down to like read something, you might pick up on a lesson totally totally different from
Yeah.
lifting it off a page than what's actually intended, where you're like told it through like, oh no, actually there's a little bit more explanation to be had here, and it's easier to like look at someone's face and like see what they mean through, like, you know, the shape of their mouth and what their eyes are doing and all that stuff, you know. So I think it's, yeah, it's like, I again, to go back to like the whole you setting this up and like all the work you've had to do in the background that you don't, like, you know, you don't broadcast it, but like a lot of fucking work. Like, this isn't just you jumping on a Skype call and being like, cool, let's talk for an hour and a half. This is all the technical stuff, like build it, like making it available in all the separate platforms, like having to like edit everything, like the sound stuff you're talking about, having a nightmare with that last couple of days. Like, it's no mean feat to make this like this available to people, and I think it is. You're right. It's one of those things, like I've done wee talks or training sessions or whatever in the past, like either off my own back or like through the businesses that I've worked for, and it used to be like I'd be gutted if like only 5 people turned up or like whatever. And then you have that like that switching mentality where, and it was someone that came up to me and went, Phil, that was amazing. And you go, fuck, like I've focused on totally the wrong thing here. Like I wanted to fill a room of people, which again, in this day and age, because information's so readily available, why would I go listen to, like, physically take myself to this place to listen to that person when that is available in my bed but on the screen? But when you get that feedback, you're like, fuck. Oh, like, and again, it's a massive cliche, but like if one person takes one little nugget, like 3-second nugget off one of your conversations, that then like it's done the job. It doesn't.
I've lived by that. That's one of the luckiest things being in a band has given me, other than having a way to like vent a lot of shit, where I think if I didn't write music, honestly, my head would explode. Like, I've always had that. If one person loves it, it was worth doing the show. And people think that's just like, I don't know if this is the right word, a platitude, like just something you just kind of say.
Sure.
If that's the wrong word, apologies for being daft. But yeah, it's something you just say, a cliche. But honestly, we've played like, and it gives a wrong impression to say that it's all like this. Our band's had varying success. The success isn't the reason; it's to get it all out there, and everything else is a bonus from there. We've gone over and played like Prague. The Deftones were playing the night before, and it was a free show because they do it better in Europe. Why would somebody who's only heard us a couple of times on Spotify pay a big fee? But we've played like a theatre in Prague to 300 people. And sold out of merch. They fucking loved it. We didn't sell 300 tickets, but they fucking loved it, But then the next night we've played to maybe 4 people in a huge venue in Germany, and we've gone, boys, how has this fucking happened? Last week in Dortmund we played to 200, and they absolutely loved it. But then somebody will come up and go, I've driven 6 hours because I really loved your stuff on Spotify, and you'd be like, amazing. Give them a t-shirt. Let's get photos. Do you want a beer? Let's enjoy this. And we go back to the same place in Karlsruhe. We've been there 3 times. Because there's like 20 of the students in that city that love us, and they put us up for the night. They pay us well. They give us food. It's worth going, but it's because the reception's amazing. And literally, if anybody is getting value out of something you do, that's just a buzz to me. Like, it's not about like fucking becoming what other people think is a success. Because like you said right at the start with Jim Carrey and stuff like that, we won an award. We don't really shout about it that much. We won an award, Scottish Alternative Music Awards, Best Alternative Rock. We won it at the Garage, like 2015. We just played Tina Park. Like, in that genre, we are the fucking best. It's not big signed professional band. Like, the crowd was like, sound. There's like 20 of our fans there. The rest of the crowd, they don't really care. The next day, nothing changes. So it would have been much better to play a wee basement show to 50 people who are like, we don't give a fuck if you're like the industry best. We just love you. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You've got to do things for what really matters, not platitudes and not fucking awards, not fucking thinking that I've got to get 1,000 views on this podcast or it doesn't, it's not worth it. No, I had 2 people ask me yesterday, where's the ammo hour? It's not up yet. I was like, holy shit. Yeah, I've had sound difficulties. Like, the episode's up there and it's such a good conversation and the sound is fucking shit. So I'm really gutted about that. And if anyone's listening and knows how to do these technical things and produce the thing and that, if you want to get involved and help produce it, that would be class, because I am an absolute amateur. But if I had 2 people messaged and there's only 5 episodes and we're like, yeah, we realised it wasn't up. That's my routine on a Monday now. I was like, that's fucking class.
Yeah.
No, and if it's only that two people listening, hello, how are you? Like, thanks for listening. That is enough for me just now. This isn't having to take up time of work and stuff. As we go back to work and I go back to playing in the band and I can see family and friends, yeah, if tons of people aren't listening, maybe this becomes something that I do less often, but I'll still do it. So yeah, just to cap that off, it's all about quality, not quantity in anything, isn't it?
Yeah, I think as long as you know, the motivation from within comes from the right place in anything that you do, then you can't really go much wrong with it. Eh?
Yeah, 100%, man. Just before we go, I would talk for hours, but I think we can just have other conversations rather
Yeah.
than seeing people drop off. It's like I only have an hour.
Yeah.
Um,
False
so
advertising.
yeah, so we'll keep that we'll keep other conversations for future. Um, but yeah, I need somebody to feed back to me about how old people and people who don't get involved in other sports and stuff can just go for a round of golf, no bother. Like me and you are, you're an athletically built guy. Like I've always been sporty. We're really healthy. I feel we've got good hand-eye coordination. We can ping a football, we can play rugby. We went for a game of golf yesterday. It's a 9-hole. I must have taken about 42 shots on the first hole. You got to the green pretty quick and then took another 40 to get in. And then we just went home. How hard is fucking golf?
Better.
What
So
the
hard.
hell? I just want to be able to take the clubs out, go a lovely wee walk with a wee hip
Yeah.
flask. Is it going to take us 50 years?
I don't know. Like, honestly, I think it's like it brought back memories of like, um, when you're playing football and there's nobody about and you pull off shit that you'd never do on a Saturday, it's just you. And then I think because it was busy at the park, I'm not making excuses at all, but like I immediately got in my head of like being aware of how shit I am, like if there's nobody about, you lose that inhibition where you're like, I can fully accept the fact that I'm absolutely dog shit at golf. But the minute that there was a few folk walking about and like, that boy waved over at us and that, and I was like, oh man, like I'm fully like
Yeah.
got stage fright here. But yeah, I think there's so many like, like you said, you see the old boys out there just like hitting these beautiful shots, and two guys who like I've always thought I'm like relatively coordinated, but
Mhm.
that seemed to all fully go out the window
I think
yesterday.
it's just such a humbling thing because I think like I remember that when I first took up barbering, I was like, how long does it take? People are like about 2 years. And I was like, "Ah, right, sweet. In my mind, I'll do it in 6 months. Not
Mm,
because I thought it was going to be easy. I just know I am fucking manic when it comes to I'm going to learn this thing. But no, it was about 2 years till I became like comfortable. And
yeah, yeah,
you look at golf and you go, right, it's a stick and it's a ball. Like I said, like I feel quite confident with my football, my long range passing, engaging and that. Just the same, absolute leveler. I think that the kind of takeaway I took from it was that, when people talk about Tiger Woods talks about this bell jar thing and like doesn't matter like all the pressure, and I've heard rugby kickers, Johnny Wilkinson talk about it, and like NBA when they're doing free throws and stuff like that. And you know, when you've got all the eyes on you and that, they have this thing where they're able to go, well, it's just the same as at the practice field. But
sure.
that's so easy to repeat and so hard to pull off. You know what I mean? Like I've never been unaware of who's even Sunday league football. Like it's so hard. The only thing I think I do well in my life that doesn't matter if there's one person or 1,000 people there is the music. And I don't know why that is. I don't know if that's my natural thing or what I've spent the most time with or a bit of both. But I'm able to just be like, well, my job is this. It doesn't matter who's watching. But yeah, the sport, man, it's fucking so hard, isn't it? Like when people are looking and you know you're not the best at it.
I think like it's a weird one because you kind of want to like. I think that so the thought process that goes on in my head is like, I hope these guys don't think I think I'm good.
That's it. Yeah,
You
there you
know.
go. Yeah.
So like I want to explain to them like I'm not out here like showing off or like being fucking swaggering about. Like I'm fully aware that I'm terrible, but like there's that sort of, I don't know if it's ego or whatever that comes into it at that point where like yeah you just if like naturally it's kind of shit being shit at stuff.
Yeah, 100%. No,
And it shouldn't be,
you've
you
nailed
know.
that right there, man. See, next time we should wear like a high vis vest with like an L plate on the back. Because you're right, you're absolutely right. When I watch, it comes with running and stuff as well. I'm like, oh, I don't really want to go running when it's busy because I don't want people like to look at me and go like, I can run. Like, what the fuck am I thinking of? But when you see like a bigger guy or someone that's like really poor at running, but they're trying, the only thing you're thinking is, fucking good on you, man.
Totally.
And there was two guys ahead of us that had all the gear and that, and they were absolutely shite. And we were just like, all right, sound. Like, but we're out there with like 4 clubs, like, don't bring the bag, don't bring the bag. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, it was just horrific, but I really want to get good at it, man.
Yeah, we'll get to the driving range sometime soon, and at least that's kind of we can start to put some moves together.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure the listeners, whoever they are, the two people we've been talking about, are absolutely delighted we just chatted about golf there. But it's a catch up as well.
Totally.
Right, man. I'm gonna hit stop recording. I'm not just gonna hang up on you though. We can de-evaluate or debrief. There you go. Everyone after this. But yeah, thanks so much for your time on this, man. And I'm sure everyone listening in love to hear their first instalment of you, and we'll get repeat conversations lined up.
Amazing. Yeah, thanks for the invite to talk. It's very welcome, and I think what you're doing is a great thing, man. So good on you.
Thanks, bro. Right, I'll stop recording.
Yeah, we're talking about